Oh, Hannah Padu. It's been a long time if I come here to see y'all. I could just to read this little book here. And I will share with y'all. Happy Black History Month all over again, and welcome to Gullah Talk. So today I am always excited, but really excited to share with you just a little bit of the origins of Gullah language studies, and share with you a little bit about the guy who we call the father of Gullah studies. So if you're interested in learning more, stay tuned. So the book that I'm holding in my hand is an absolute gem. When I started doing my Gullah research, when I was working on my master's degree in speech pathology at South Carolina State University and my PhD in speech pathology and audiology and linguistics from LSU, this was like my Bible for all of my linguistic studies. It's called Africanisms in the Gullah Dialect by the one and only Lorenzo Turner. He was an amazing linguist that helped to expand people's mind about Gullah studies. In many ways, he helped to legitimize it. So I want to just share a little bit of information about who he is, so that you can go out and grab this book and learn for yourself about what he says about the Gullah language. So let's start with who is Lorenzo Turner. I mean, he's the father of Gullah studies. There was a book published by Margaret Wade Lewis that really did a chronology of his life and his contributions to the world of linguistics, English, and the study of language. But his main focus in the years of his writing was on Africanism, specifically in the Gullah language. And he spent a lot of time here in South Carolina and other areas examining Gullah language. He was born in 1890 and died in 1972. So who's Turner? Like I said, he published this book. He is an African-American linguist. And he published this text in 1949 with the University of Chicago Press. And he has built a foundation for us as rising scholars in the study of language in various areas for scholarship of the African diaspora. In 1949, I'm sure nobody was like, yeah, go study Black language, right? But here is this Black man who is absolutely brilliant, who decides that this is worth studying. And I'm so grateful for that. As somebody who loves the study of language, to have someone who sort of paved the way, and not sort of, he paved the way really for us as scholars to go by. And so that's who he was. And he provided evidence of significant cultural and linguistic retentions of African cultures among African Americans. And I think that's profound. It's well documented in his text, the correlation between Gullah language and many African languages. He had stories from those who were enslaved, and he actually has some recordings that you can listen to of some of the people saying prayers and singing songs and telling stories within the Gullah language. So it's fascinating work. I think it's important that we take a look. So Lorenzo Turner was born in Elizabeth City, North Carolina. He then moved to Rockville, Maryland, where he was born free. However, his mother was born enslaved. I think that's an interesting fact, and it probably had a lot to do with and influenced his choice of study. One interesting fact about him is he didn't attend college until 20 years old because he needed to work to save. Now, how many of us could save? That is the story of many Black people. It's like, I want to go to college, but I need to save my money before I can go. So this was his story. And although he made lots of strides and earned a doctorate, he had to wait a little while before he was able to enjoy college. So who's Turner? He played baseball for the Commonwealth Giants baseball team, comprised of young Black men on the Commonwealth steamboat of the Fall River, Massachusetts steamboat line. And he made his money through baseball to pay for his education and to take care of his mom, That is remarkable. So baseball was the foundation that allowed him to save money to go to college and take care of his family. Some of the connections that I made there, when I think about like my family, my dad went into the military to help take care of his family. And I'm sure you have stories of your family and what they did to sacrifice and save before they could actually reach their personal goals. So I think it's commendable that he did that in order to support his family. I am fascinated by his trajectory in terms of education, but he earned a BA in English in 1910 from Howard. He went on to the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences and earned a master's in English in 1917. And then he went on to the University of Chicago, where he stayed from 1919 to 1926 and earned a PhD in English. So what I think is great about that is like his entire trajectory was the study of English. And then he landed beautifully into studying Gullah, a variety of English and English-based Creole language. And I'm certain really just motivated by the connection to Africa and the Africanisms that were very evident, but not documented in the Gullah language. So this book, Africanisms in the Gullah dialect, has the first phonetically transcribed phonetic transcription of the Gullah language that's been published to this extent. I think there was like one person who maybe published a little bit like in their dissertation, but in text, this is like the crowning jewel 1949 publication. So a fun fact about Dr. Turner, he was a second generation college student at a time when most African Americans were only receiving up to a fourth grade education. His father graduated from Howard University in 1877. So he comes from good stock. I mean, people who went to college and kind of paved the way. So he was a second gen college student when that kind of wasn't even a thing. So, you know, let's just celebrate him there for that accomplishment, which I can see propelled him into what he was able to do for Gullah people and with Gullah language. So let's dive into a few of his notable achievements. And I think one of these may surprise you if you're not like a nerd about Lorenzo Turner like me, but I think there's a really exciting fact about him that I want to bring to your attention. Let's take a look. So he joined the Howard Debate Club in 1913. He was a manager of a baseball team. He was the class president, advisory council member. He joined Alpha Phi Alpha. Okay, sidebar. I was Miss Alpha Phi Alpha when I was in undergrad. Shout out to the Alphas. I always thought they were so smart. And Lorenzo Turner is an Alpha. So shout out to all the Alphas out there, all right? Let's bring this back up. So he joined Alpha Phi Alpha, and this is what I think is amazing. He spent some of his summers teaching at South Carolina State University. I think that's exciting that the guy who wrote what I like to call the Gullah language Bible spent some time teaching at South Carolina State University. I taught there for several years. And so I think that's a really neat and fun fact about Lorenzo Turner that possibly many people don't know. And even further, I mean, this guy was amazing. He was the head of the Department of English at Howard. He was the department chair at Fisk, the chair of the African American Studies program, and a Fulbright scholar in Africa in 1951. My goodness, a scholar, a leader, a professor, a writer, a linguist. This man was amazing. I wish that I had the opportunity to meet him, but I can't tell you how much he's influenced my work as a Gullah scholar. So let's interact a little bit. I want you to drop this in the chat. Of all the things that I've shared with you so far about Lorenzo Turner's story, what resonates the most with you about his story and his life? I think there are a lot of things that are amazing. You heard the things that I got really, really excited about in his story, but let me know in the chat what resonates with you about Dr. Turner's story. In this text, we know that Turner did a lot of work. I mean, this was a deep dive. He immersed himself in the landscape and the culture of the other people. I mean, he lived on the islands, and he was able to identify more than 4,000 words in the Gullah Geechee language that trace descent from several languages in West and Central Africa. And I think that's amazing. When we talk about Gullah Geechee being as close to Africa as you're going to get, his transcripts and his documentation of what he heard and saw along the corridor really solidifies our connection to Africa and the African diaspora. So in his text, he brilliantly breaks down some of the percentages of where the enslaved came from, and that's how he was able to determine what languages influenced and helped to create Gullah Geechee as we know it. So in his text, he talks about a certain percentage being from what is now Angola. I'm speaking the Kimbundu language. 23% being from Sierra Leone, where they speak Creole, and 20% from what is now Senegal and Gambia. So there's several languages represented. I just broke down a few for you all to see here in these slides. But a few others that he mentioned are Yoruba, Mandingo, and several other African languages. I mean, history tells us there were many, many Africans brought here, and we know that there are hundreds of languages spoken across Africa. So they're heavily influenced by certain areas. And he was able to tie nicely when you look at his transcripts and his breaking down of the vocabulary, where certain words came from in Africa and tied right back to Gullah language. So sometimes people want to challenge if Gullah Geechee is even a language. And what I love about what Turner did is he broke down those phonemic lexical syntactic similarities between Gullah and several West and Southwestern African languages, which really helps to solidify Gullah as a language. A lot of people just wanted to say it was broken English, but he was really nicely able to bridge that our structures, our lexicon, and our phonemic patterns are really heavily influenced by several West African languages. So of course it might sound to people as broken, but it's not, because we're using rules and patterns that emerge from African languages. I am not sure whose graphic that is, but if that is your graphic, please tell me so I can give you credit, because I absolutely love this graphic. Gullah is just broken ink. Boy, shut up. Boy, shut up. Ain't nothing broken about no Gullah. And what I love is that Lorenzo's roadmap to Gullah and its connections to Africa very, very nicely shut down any challenges anyone may have about identifying Gullah as. So here I'll share just a few of the things that he shared within his text that resonate with me or that I may have heard growing up to me that kind of helped legitimize for me as a scholar saying that Gullah Geechee is a language. But bitty bitty, this means small bird or small chicken in Gullah. And it is derived, according to Turner, from Congo and Niger-Congo languages spoken in Angola. This is a picture to the left here of my auntie, and we called her Aunt Dada. So in Gullah, dad and dada are used interchangeably to mean mother, nurse, and an elderly woman. And he found parallels for these words in the U spoken in Togo, Ghana, and Benin Republic, where dad and dada mean mother or elder sister. Do any of you have a dada in your family? You call anybody dada? That was our sweet Aunt Dada. And she was my grandmother's sister. And I had no idea the connection of what we called her, Aunt Dada, to African languages. And so reading through Turner's book really illuminated that for me. And just even in the names that we call each other, another video for another day. But it made me excited to know when I'm using these words and these terms of endearment that they're directly aligned and connected to African languages. Lorenzo Dow Turner was a lot of things. And one of the ways that I love to talk about him is that he was a revolutionary leader. He was a linguist, an advocate, an educator, and a trailblazer. And since Turner's seminal work, Several scholars have emerged to sort of continue his trajectory of studying Gullah as a language, with several dialects that are spoken, with Cunningham in 1970, Patricia Causey Nichols in 76. The list goes on. Some of my favorites are Dr. Tracy Weldon, Salakoko Mufwani, and shamelessly, Jessica Berry. I have to cite myself because I'm excited about the work that I get to do. There's several others that I'm sure that I missed, but we honor all of the work that has been done in the past, that is being done now to continue the fight for Gullah being recognized as a language, studied, and continuing the preservation effort. So that's all for today. I can just want to talk to them boy about Lorenzo Dow Turner for a little bit and let y'all know exactly who he is and how he paved the way for young scholars to continue the work and to study the Gullah language like we do. If you get a chance, go grab this book off of Amazon. It is something to have on your desk if you really want to dig into and dive into the African connections between Gullah language and Africa. So that's all I got for the shirt today. Check out my shirt. It says, "Living my best life and going back and forth with you" by Dr. Alicia. Shout out to Dr. Alicia for this amazing shirt and the work that she does. Several people out here working hard to talk about and preserve Gullah language. All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Gullah Talk. Until next time, Are. Now, don't forget, like, follow, share, and subscribe. I'll see y'all next time.